hope you're hearing me well. I think there was enough time for everyone to join this specific session, which is going to be, as mentioned, on the more concrete side of funding opportunities. I'm very happy to welcome you here in this room. My name is Oğuz Özkan, and I work as part of the project scouting services of the Time Machine organization. And I'm happy to moderate this session here today. So first, I would like to give the floor to our colleague from the Schuman Associates, Anca Calugaru. She's going to talk about the Recovery and Resilience Facility, as Julia very kindly mentioned. I also would like to mention once more that the contextualization of this session was so good by Julia, so I'm not really giving any further remarks. Just that after Anca's presentation, there will also be a sort of a 5-minute brief by our colleague Juan from Spain, the National Research Council, who will share their good practice, or best practice for attracting funding or fundraising in this specific regard. So, Anca, I'm very happy to give you the word.
Thank you, Oğuz. Thank you very much. I hope you can see me, you can hear me, you can see what I'm projecting. Maybe I'll try to enlarge my slides so that they are easier to read. If I can do this, I would congratulate myself. F5 doesn't work. Anyway, maybe we do it like this. So,
Anca, if you don't mind, it's
yes.
Right to the left of the bar, which says 64%. At the bottom, at the right. At the bottom, at the right.
At the bottom, at the right. Okay.
Yeah, and to its left. No, just to its left. There's a icon which looks like yeah, that's one.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. Thank you. So, good afternoon again. My name is Anca Calugaru. I come from Schuman Associates. Probably some of you already know us. Probably some of you already know Ruth Estrada, my colleague who's usually talking in the TMO context. Today, I was nominated, so to say, to give you a short presentation about EU funding opportunities for digital cultural heritage at the member state level. So I'm not going to talk about Horizon or Digital Europe, because these are programs managed in Brussels, and I think they will be better explained after my presentation. On the contrary, what I want to talk about today is funds that are managed in the member states by the national or regional governments. And in particular, I'm referring today to two important funding sources coming from the European Union. The first one, and the newest, I would say, is the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And the second one is probably an instrument that you well know already because it has a history in the EU. We are talking about the cohesion programs, the operational programs as they are better known. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, I think it's by now quite common in the media, in the national and regional context. Probably you hear a lot about the national recovery plans in your countries. Indeed, the Commission prepared this new funding instrument to cope with the effects of the corona crisis. And they came up with this new funding possibility that is actually available for all EU member states, irrespective of the size or the economic development. You will see later on that each of the 27 member states actually gets a budget from the recovery facility. Indeed, the way this facility or this fund works is through national recovery plans. Each country has such a national recovery plan. And they are quite exposed, I would say, that they are public, and usually governments pride with these plans and make them the Bible of the investment in the member states for the next 5-6 years. I also want to touch on the cohesion programs because they are another important funding stream in your countries, in your regions. Although the recovery facilities stole the show a little bit, the cohesion programs are here and are quite important because traditionally they also supported the cultural sector, and they will continue doing so through what we call the operational programs. Each country will have a number of national or regional operational programs depending on the administrative setup of the country, and through these programs it is expected that the cultural domain will also be financed in the next years. As you can see there, we are talking about quite significant budgets that are split for each of the member states. In total, more than 1 trillion, 1,000 billion euro, with Italy being the biggest recipient by far with 233 billion euro. Altogether, recovery and resilience facility and cohesion programs. You see in the 5 top recipients: Poland, Spain, Romania, France, but also countries like Greece, Germany, Portugal, Hungary benefit quite a lot from these 2 funding instruments that start to be available as we speak. In fact, I think the timeline is quite important for both of them because they have different milestones and different deadlines, and the recovery facility for sure is the most, I would say, urgent funding instrument because the projects financed by this facility have to be contracted. So there has to be a contract between the authorities in charge in each of the countries and the specific beneficiaries of these funds by the end of 2023. All projects have to be implemented, as you can see there, by August 2026. So it might sound like a lot, but in reality, given the ambitions of these recovery plans, I think we are talking about quite tight timelines and deadlines. On the other hand, for the cohesion funds, things are a little bit more relaxed, so to say, because actually the projects have to be, can be implemented by end of 2029. As we speak, the cohesion operational programs are not yet approved, which is not the case with the recovery facility, for instance, where most of the plans have already been green-lighted by the EU institutions. In the case of the cohesion funds, the Commission, the European Commission, the governments are still negotiating these operational programs that are expected to kick off actually only next year, probably towards the second half of the year. So if I was to put, a finger on the most urgent or the immediate opportunity, I would say definitely the recovery plans, because they are already up and running in most of the cases. I selected here just a few countries as an example of the status. But just to let you know that in terms of the recovery facility, in terms of the recovery plans, the vast majority of the countries, including Austria, Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal as examples, the vast majority have their recovery plans approved by the EU institutions, meaning that all the reforms and the investments that are included in these recovery plans can actually start being implemented. Calls for proposals being launched, projects being selected on the ground. So everything can happen because the plans are approved. There are only a few exceptions at the moment. I think only 4 countries still don't have their plans approved by the Commission. These are Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Sweden. And the Netherlands actually never submitted a plan to the European Commission due to political context. So apart from these 5 countries, all the others have their plans approved. When it comes to the cohesion operational programs, things are not that mature, as I mentioned before. All countries are actually at the stage of drafting them and negotiating them with the European Commission. Some of them are more advanced in the sense that they have more mature drafts. They published extensive drafts of these documents already for the public. It's the case of Greece, for instance, whereas there are countries that are still a little bit behind in the process, and for which we expect to see draft operational programs in the next couple of weeks. In any case, for all member states, we expect that the operational programs, the cohesion operational programs, will only be approved next year, meaning that the calls for projects, all the implementation will actually start towards end of next year, and then in the years to follow up until 2029, when the hard deadline for implementation is. Why are we talking about these 2 funding instruments? Because on the one hand, they will represent the investment arm of the governments, for sure, in the next decade. And the second biggest reason is that because they are also cultural heritage digitalization friendly. So all these elements that you see there, conservation of culture, development of digital tools, promotion, all these elements are eligible. And in fact, what we see is that in many of the recovery plans, cultural heritage and digitalization of cultural heritage has a quite important role. For today's discussions, I selected again a few examples just to show you concrete opportunities, concrete funding opportunities. I chose to begin with the Austrian example. So in the case of Austria, the recovery plan is approved. The Ministry of Arts, Culture and Civil Service and Sport is in charge of the cultural component. The plan will fund development of a national digitalization strategy for cultural heritage, but will also invest in specific concrete projects for culture and for digitalization. And I just extracted here the example of the modernization of the Kulturpool platform, which is actually the, as you probably well know, if we have Austrian colleagues joining, the local Europana, if you want. So the aim with this money, which are about 16.5 million only for the digital component, the purpose is to actually upscale this digital platform. And the ministry will organize several calls for projects in the next year to select the most suited projects to reach this ambition. That's just an example of the recovery facility. Because the cohesion operational programs are not so advanced, I couldn't show you any concrete opportunity, but we hope that once the programs are approved, also for cohesion, there will be opportunity in Austria. The second example comes from Greece, again a country with the plan approved. I selected only a few, 2 projects out of a bigger list for sure. These 2 projects are worth 45 million euro. They are quite specific and nominated in the plan with very clear implementation deadlines. As you can see, the first one is for digital infrastructure in archaeological sites, but also monuments. While the second one is also targeting more globally the digitalization of the cultural sector, including products, development of tours, programs to use virtual reality, so on and so forth. So quite diverse, I would say, landscape targeting the cultural sector. Lastly, some examples from a few other countries, Italy, Spain, Portugal. These are not exhaustive lists. Again, they are just examples. Imagine that in all these countries, there are many other components or investments targeting the sector. In Italy, I think by far we find one of the biggest budgets allocated to digital cultural heritage, around 2 billion euro altogether. That will be managed mostly by the Central Institute for the Digitalization of Cultural Heritage in different ways. You see there, again, digitalization of museums, libraries, archives, but also development of cultural content, digital skills. So a quite comprehensive program targeting the cultural domain. In Spain, a few examples as well. In Portugal, very concrete investment in digitalization and virtualization of the collections in different organizations of the cultural sector. And Portugal was quite ambitious already to identify and specify quantities, if you want, of material and products digitalized, as you can see there. So it's quite concrete, I would say. With this, I end the list of examples, and actually to wrap up, my piece of advice, if you want, would be to focus on both funding instruments. To begin with, I would say with the recovery facility, and for this, I encourage you to read the plans to extract all the investments, all the reforms that are relevant for your organization, and then to monitor the release of these funds, because in some cases, as you could see, there are predefined institutions that will owe a budget. In other cases, we are talking about competitive calls for projects where different entities will have to compete one against the other. So it's quite important to trace all these elements, the disbursement, to submit, of course, project proposals and hopefully to be successful and access the money. At the same time, don't forget about the cohesion, sorry? Yes, don't forget about the cohesion programs, because they will be another important source of funding for the cultural sector. And even more, because the operational programs are not yet fully defined, I would encourage you to discuss with your line ministries, with your regions, because you might find the opportunity to actually advocate for some of your projects very early and make sure that they become part or eligible in the new operational program. That would be, I think, my intervention for today, but I remain at your disposal for any other questions or comments or experiences. Thank you.
Dear Anca, thank you very much for your talk. Actually, after Juan, we may invite questions for this session. We will be very happy to have you here. Thank you. Juan?
Okay, hello, good evening to everybody. Thank you to all of you. I'm trying to share my screen, first of all. Where is...
If it's not working for you, I can also try to do it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Half of it.
Sorry?
On my screen, I only see half of your slide.
Oh my God. So probably it's much better if you try to show my presentation. I think I have some small problem with my with this computer.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Let me give it a try. Yeah. And you can just instruct me when you want me to change the slide.
Okay, I see properly the presentation. Hopefully all of you can see the same. Okay, so first of all, thank you to all of you. I try to fit my presentation to these 5 minutes. I'm Juan Castro. I'm senior scientist from the Spanish National Research Council and also from the University of Santiago de Compostela. And part of this presentation is based on our previous work with Time Machine in this virtual and smart cultural tourism in pilot action. Please, Oğuz. So first of all, who we are. We are a Crusoe network, and this is a little bit tricky. It's quite important to notice that we are 6 regions in 2 different countries. We are 4 Spanish regions, Galicia, Asturias, Cantabria, and Castilla-León, and 2 regions for Portugal, from Portugal, North and Central Portugal regions. The key point is this is almost the 3rd part of the Iberic Peninsula, but we are only around 7.5 million people. So our population is quite spread. And we represent this amount of higher education institution. Do you mind the next one, please? So in this pilot action, participate a public and private partnership within the European, within the SOE Euro region. And our proposal that we share with you this evening is led by the Galician region. As you can see, is in the right-hand side. The regional administration is Xunta de Galicia, but also the City Council of Santiago de Compostela and 2 of, mainly the 3 Galician University and some of the local companies in Galicia. Please, the next one. With our participation in the pilot action, we can see these 4 critical points for our vision to develop a cultural digital economy based in our cultural asset in order to produce this movement for our current situation to the post-COVID scenario. With this idea, please, so good. Please, the next one, please. And also based, no, the previous one, please. And based in this, the Pilgrim Road that is really well known in the European context, we define our proposal that is called Stellae 5.0. Please, the next one. This is the key part of the presentation. Our proposal is led, as I said before, by the Galician Regional Administration called Xunta de Galicia, but is defining as a modular proposal in order to be able to join the other regional administration with the same general scheme. This scheme is based in these 5 different blocks. The idea of smart digitalization, as the previous speaker said in some of the different previous projects. Also, how to build an ICT infrastructure, not to produce again a new cloud, but use the European resource as, for instance, Copernicus and some other ICT, and be able to control the knowledge within the cloud. Based on this smart digitalization to create new digital content based in our heritage but the most important point is the education and training. We are developed a new postgraduate master degree, an interinstitutional degree on digital heritage, in order to create the human capital to create value from this digital content. And to close the proposal, the idea to create an entrepreneurship action based on incubator and a spin-off facilities in our higher education infrastructure. The key point is all this holistic vision is under a private-public partnership. And in that sense, we are building endowed chair with the entity data company. The next one, please. So this proposal, as far as we know, are able to achieve this key objective in human capital, in entrepreneurship, in investment industry and ICT infrastructure. But at the same time, we are talking also with the Latin American institution as the Mexican Cooperation Office and the Bank of Development, Inter-American Development Bank. The next one, please. So our proposal is focused in these three specific area, in these three specific aspects. The idea to be able to scalable the proposal with the 5 other European regions, I mean, in Spain and in Portugal, we working under the European scheme in these 3 other key drivers, the R&D, the education and entrepreneurship, using the different European schemes, and also working with the idea to create an Erasmus Mundus in this digital heritage framework. The next one, please. And this is the final one is we already start to work in a new building facility in Santiago de Compostela. It's called CISPAC. It's the first inter-university action under this specific scheme, and we have this building and this infrastructure to set up all this proposal. So this is my presentation, and of course I'm happy to answer all the questions that you want to make.
Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you very much, Anca. I think we can have a question answer session at this moment if you have any questions in mind. Otherwise, I will also pose my own question to specifically Anca. Okay, if not, so I'm...
Yes, please.
Anca, if you wouldn't mind, I just have seen in the chat that there was a question from Zitze Virenga, hopefully I pronounced this correctly, about what would be the recommends for the Netherlands situation.
Oh, I wish I could give you a straight answer, but I think the fact that we don't yet have a formalized plan from the Dutch government is also an opportunity maybe to discuss with them and see what their plans are, because indeed they are very late in putting together such a plan and sending it to the Commission. The only country remaining as such. So I would encourage you to explore a discussion with them and see what the status is and what the appetite to actually include cultural heritage in their investment plans could be. So yeah.
And thanks.
Then I may also, shortly pose my question. It's actually a request. Anca, would you mind sharing with us once more around when we should be expecting to see the programs online accessible in terms of content?
So the recovery plans, actually, they are available on the websites of the different governments. Usually there's a coordinating ministry in charge, either the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of EU Funds sometimes, or Ministry of Regional Development, depending on the setup in each of the countries. So the plans, I think they are all over the place in the member states. For the cohesion operational programs, things are a little bit more complicated because there are countries that have quite a few of them. Take Italy, for example, I think more than 70. Spain, the same, 20, 25, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even more, because there are many regions and each region will have at least 2 operational programs. So in the case of cohesion programs, it's the information or the programs will be scattered across different regions, different line ministries. But if you, I mean, in all these countries, there has to be a coordinating body, a central hub where you can find then the links to the different authorities in charge. Yeah, and for the cohesion programs, as I said, next year, most likely second half of next year, these cohesion programs should also be approved for most of the countries.
Thank you, Anca, for repeating this.
Thank you.
I'm again turning back to the audience if there is any question. I think Sander is going to raise a remark or question. Sorry, then I think we can proceed with the next talk, which I will be happy to deliver actually. It's going to be about the Horizon Europe funding landscape. So yeah, let me share my screen. Sorry. May I ask if you actually see my screen as a presenter or, okay, thank you. So, hello. Again, I would like to start my talk on what's happening in the European funding landscape for research and innovation in cultural heritage. As we are all aware, the new budget period started this year for all European programs. And as usual, there are some changes in the way the programs are structured and administered in the new period. My focus is going to be on the Horizon Europe program, which is the main funding source for research and innovation actors mostly. So despite the new focus on the missions and partnerships, for instance, and some new components such as the defense fund, the overall structure probably looks similar to the people who were familiar with the previous period as well. And I specifically mean the 3 pillars in the core, at the center in my slide. The pillar 2 here stands out among the others in the sense that it consists of top-down designated calls where the European Commission specifies what the overarching challenges are that need to be addressed and what final outcomes are expected from the projects. And the cluster 2 under the pillar 2 includes the majority of the calls that we are interested in. It's called Culture, Creativity, and Inclusive Society. Now, first a short recap of the 2021 calls, which actually haven't ended yet. We have a few calls which were completed in early October, and still we have some which are ongoing. The call titled Research and Innovation on Cultural Heritage and CCIs 2021 included 4 very interesting topics. You see they're listed here. They were all research and innovation action type of projects and type of calls. For now, we know that there were 177 proposals submitted. Well, some of them are usually ineligible eventually, but we will see. We don't know about it. The European Commission has already announced that they will ideally grant funding to 12 projects under the 4 topics, which are green technologies and materials, new ways of participatory management and sustainable financing of museums and other cultural institutions, cultural and creative industries as a driver of innovation and competitiveness, and finally, preserving and enhancing cultural heritage with advanced digital technologies were the call topics of this year, which have already been completed. And the European Commission published calls under the mission titled Cities. This call invited coordination and support action type of proposals under 2 topics, and each will get 1 million. Actually, now considering also the time, let's take a look at the calls which are still open for submission. So we have now 2 Bauhaus related calls which are currently accepting proposals. The first one is titled Strengthening European Coordination and Exchange. Sorry, it's a very long title. It's also shortly known as Build for People 2021. And it's a CSA and will fund on 1 project for 1 million. And the second one is launched under the mission called New Europe in Bauhaus. It promotes lighthouse demonstrators and will fund 5 projects where each will receive 5 million euro. These calls have recently been opened and they are going to be open for submission until 25th of January of 2022. And this one is specifically targeting SMEs. 20 projects will be funded under the call titled EIT Community Booster, Scaling New European Bauhaus Ventures. Actually, by nature of this call, here the idea is to provide business growth services to the winning SMEs, actually services worth up to 50,000 euro. Until now, I shared my remarks about the past calls or ongoing calls, and let's now see what is going to be launched during the next year. Well, 2022 calls for proposals which are directly related to cultural heritage and overall the cultural sector are opening in about 8 weeks from now on 20th of January 2022 and will remain open until the 20th of April. There will be 9 research innovation action type of call and 1 CSA among the topics. And the total budget of the call is 93 million euro, and the expected number of proposals will be to be funded will be around 27. I would like to briefly talk about the challenge that the European Commission expects to be addressed in this call. It's described mainly as follows. It's revival and valorization of traditional craft techniques and combining them with new and emerging cutting-edge technologies. Secondly, bringing together the traditional know-how with new and or digital technologies to develop new products, services, and professions. And creation of sustainable relationships and networks between heritage sites and all other relevant stakeholders. In fact, under different topics, you see a different combination of these challenges, and sometimes more, sometimes less. I mainly wanted to focus what's the main line, what's the main message, which is already described under the call topic, under the call description. So I'm not going to name all the call topics. There are like 10 of them. Some of them can be highlighted, like 01, 02, promoting our values at home and abroad, or 01, 04, traditional crafts for the future, a new approach. I also think that the 0107, protection of artifacts and cultural goods from anthropogenic threats, will be of interest to our time machine community. We also have a Bauhaus related call, which will be opened in September 2022. which is going to be funded under the Cluster 4. And the Cluster 4 is actually titled Digital Industry and Space. Obviously, the focus is slightly different here. 4 proposals under the topic, under this topic, we will receive around 5 million each. And this topic is titled Sustainable and Resource Efficient Solutions for an Open, Accessible, Resilient, and Low Emission Cultural Heritage. The challenge in this call is very briefly described as follows: demonstration of the potential of sustainable energy and resource efficient historical renovation of heritage buildings, and better protection of the value and long-term inclusiveness, accessibility, and usability of cultural heritage sites. My last remarks are going to be about the other potential European programs, which are also to an extent related to cultural heritage. I strongly suggest that our members should check the recently launched 2 calls under the Digital Europe program. They are specifically mentioning phenomena such as culture and tourism. They are titled Digital Innovation Hubs and Data Spaces. Secondly, the Creative Europe program actually has a sub-program which brings together cultural and creative sectors with innovation. It is called Innovation Labs. It's a recent program which has so far been launched twice in 2020 and 2021. It should also ideally open in mid next year. We will keep you updated about it. And actually, I'm going to talk about the sources of information in my last slides. I think, on the other hand, specifically the representatives from the academic institutions might be well aware of the Erasmus Mundus and COS programs, though they are definitely not only limited to academic players. The important point is that actually they are both bottom-up type of programs where the proposers actually define the content of their proposal. And the very last 2 programs I specifically want to mention here, they are multilateral programs. They are not they're not funded or they're not managed by the European Commission. The first one is CHANCE. It's funded by the participating countries' national institutes, and also HERANET is the humanities ERANET, actually, for those who have been familiar with the ERANET concept. The reason why I'm specifically bringing the last 2 here is that they have both recently supported multilateral projects which are in touching the field of culture and cultural heritage. Well, so how you can get this information timely? As project scouting, we always scan European programs to provide up-to-date information to our members. We regularly update the web page that you see here. We also communicate the updates in this page via the Time Machine newsletter to make sure that all our members are informed well about them in a timely manner. Additionally, I would like to mention the event that we undertook last year. Since it was the beginning of the programs, we organized an Info Day networking event on 9th of June 2021. It was, I think, a very good opportunity to learn about the upcoming programs and get to know about the other players in the field who are willing to join in consortia. My last slide is about that. Actually, we, as Time Machine Funding Hub, we have supported proposals, and these proposals have so far been granted with more than 22 million euro, and we also have 7 proposals under review. We provide strategic information flow to the founding and regular members about the programs and potential partners to your ideas. Well, as long as your project idea is in line with the vision and goals of the Time Machine, you are always welcome to consult us. Thank you very much for listening. I think we can receive some questions before the next talk. But just for your information, I think I'll be very glad to receive call or topic-based questions in a written form or via email, since they really require an in-depth study of the work program and other reference documents. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, dear Oğuz, also from my side for this interesting overview about what is in the pot at the moment and what is on stage for the next year on in Horizon Europe, but also the adjacent programs. My question to all of you, any questions? I do not see anyone in the chat at the moment, so maybe overwhelmed by that much information, that many programs. Maybe just in case, one question from my side, in case someone would be interested to starting in and saying, I'm interested in this kind of activity, I would love to be either start a proposal on EU level or would like to take part in such a proposal, what would be some suggestions, maybe what could be a good starting point? Would you have any suggestion, Oğuz?
Sorry, Sander, can I have your point once more? I'm sorry.
Yes, with pleasure. So I was just wondering, for those one who are interested in these calls and specifically in getting connected to those kind of calls, so maybe you would have any suggestions how to start here, beside maybe the information on these specific programs.
Yeah, specifically in the Horizon, which is Horizon meaning the real meaning of the word. In the Horizon, we see that the cultural and creative industries related calls are quite close. Actually, they're starting in about 2 months from today. So I'm pretty sure that one of the 10 call topics might be of interest to many people here. So I assume the idea could be to directly contact us, maybe at the beginning, with some ideas about how to proceed with the or how to strategize a particular proposal, things like that. We are always prepared to provide our strategic advice in this very regard, such as partnering a proposal or initiating a proposal from the beginning. And again, based on your interest, we are always happy to dig a little further with our stakeholders and also in the reference documents to understand the nature of that specific call even further, to give you more suited and more tailor-made advice at this very moment. So, but these slides will be shared with the audience. I'm sure there are also people in the other session who would like to receive updates about this particular session. So it was, I think, a sort of extensive selection of the existing opportunities, and I'll be very happy if some of the calls there are attracting your attention and you might want to hear more about that. We are always happy to receive your contact, happy to receive your emails. I don't know if that answered, if that addressed your question, remark, Sander.
Many thanks for that. So fits perfectly. I see. So many thanks for posing that question. Is there some kind of time machine matchmaking platform or initiative for potential partners to contact?
Sander, thank you. Actually, thank you, Sitze. This is something we started at a very preliminary stage last year, and we somehow want to turn it into a more self-managing, self-sustainable model. Maybe probably through our website. This year we are planning to start some kind of a little platform where people can simply register their ideas to partner or to initiate a specific proposal, in which they can also indicate what type of skills or what type of specializations they have and what they expect from the other partners. I think we can also update our members here through the newsletters in the coming months, so that actually they will also be more informed about the current stage. Yeah, there are some plans.
So many thanks for that question. And let me just quickly check in the chat. anyone else who wants to pose an urgent question is having chance to directly forwarding it to our mastermind on Horizon Europe. If not, many thanks also for providing this insights into the current programs, the upcoming programs. And let me quickly switch to a last topic area related to funding. So I hope you can see my screen now. If yes, so it's my pleasure to introduce to you I would say, a third topic area, and this is directly related to innovation, and specifically the question for how to support interregional innovation. And at some points today, there has been already this link to its interregional partnerships, and specifically is this interregional partnership for virtual and smart cultural tourism being made. So let me grab chance to briefly introduce to you this partnership, but also I would say the underlying idea and program. So interregional partnerships are an instrument initially founded by the European Commission in 2018 with the specific dedication to connect regions and support interregional innovation in a specific sector. And by such nature, those partnerships are not a single project, but they are structures and they are mandated in a specific sector to become a kind of hub for further projects. And we are really lucky about and happy about that we got supported and mandated with this idea of a virtual and smart cultural tourism partnership by the European Commission, and got selected in early 2021 for this one-year period, first to prepare and set up the partnership, and of course with a idea to last for longer. Virtual and smart cultural tourism, what is it about? So let me introduce to you Assassin's Creed, but not the game on the computer, but Assassin's Creed in reality. So this is an example from our Paris colleagues, and it brought us to the question, what if heritage visits would become more exciting and attractive even for younger generations? Or another point, what if we could explore destinations on our mobile devices? And finally, it's always a question what new kind of business opportunities this would make possible, or this could make possible. With this idea, the Partnership for Virtual and Smart Cultural Tourism is tackling two different strands. So at the one hand, virtual cultural tourism as remote visits to cultural tourism destinations. And I think you can widely imagine, specifically in COVID times, what that would mean to not being able to physically traveling somewhere, but at least have a chance to virtually go in somewhere. The second strand is to look on virtual applications to support tourism on site, so destination management, destination browsing, also tour guides, etc. With this partnership, we started in early 2021, and as I mentioned to you, it's first about building up structures, but also a set of business cases. In our case, we proposed 2 to 4 prototypic business cases and came up with 5 at the moment. And we are really happy about our network here, which comprises 7 partnering regions in this pilot phase. And within those 7 partnering regions, we have 57 actors from research, from industry, from government, which are closely working with us in order to shaping this partnership. What has been done during the last weeks or month? At the one hand, we had 7 regional workshops, so 1 workshop in each of the regions, with in total around 100 institutions taking part and gaining much input and really great insights in the regions, but also in the specific demands there. Secondly, we were happy to have an even larger matchmaking event and to co-host this together with more associations and European networks and the European Commission with 500 participants. Why is this number? Because we have received 650 registrations and unfortunately could not accommodate all of them. And finally, we did a stakeholder survey, and from this survey, we received almost 30 candidate business proposals or demo cases or applications, and also we identified bottlenecks and prioritized them. Why is this important? This is information we are required to forward to the European Commission in order to providing input for their further shaping of activities in that field in the upcoming years. As I mentioned, a core activity of this partnership was to propose and to create business ideas and business proposals. And we are really happy to having 5 business proposals which arose out of this many inputs, as I mentioned to you. Let me briefly introduce those business proposals. The first point is that we have spotted a large demand or let's rather say a gap in between a really large number of great software application tools, but also content, which are highly visible, well established on a regional and national base, but a question which has been raised to us several times or many times during these meetings has been how to leveraging it on an interregional level, how to make it accessible for other countries, for other regions, for other stakeholders, and how to broadcasting or brokering our great applications, our great tools, our competencies, maybe on a European scale rather than on a national one. So that is something where we are directly focusing on with this idea of a marketplace. So something like an app store and B2B marketplace for selling, for sharing, also free content, of course, of applications and content in cultural heritage, and vice versa, enabling cultural institutions or touristic destinations to purchase applications for qualified or for certified criteria. A second idea is directly focusing on this immense challenge to educating and to providing digital skills also in that field of digital heritage. So the question of digital qualification, but also I would say postgraduate and vocational education, specifically in this cultural sector and for cultural institutions. And that is again something where we have plenty of offers and plenty of great training opportunities available on a regional and national level, but we are currently missing an interregional perspective. A third idea is on focusing or supporting specifically the development of platforms and applications by providing a servicing environment, for instance, by providing billing services or access to Europeana and other content providers. And idea number 4, it's a question to connecting, to funding, to providing more targeted consultancy and servicing to gain funding from European programs. Why is this important? Currently, most of the programs are unspecific or not that specific. And of course, digital heritage or digital cultural heritage is a completely different business, like for instance, physical engineering or construction works. And the idea is to have this kind of targeted servicing and therefore supporting, I would say, on a large scale. And finally, it's the idea of providing something like a management and specific access also to large-scale funding process, so to provide an accelerator structure for European heritage in order to being able to connecting, to finding, to financing instruments, and also to providing and shaping these targeted programs from those financing instruments, for instance, for companies in Europe in that sector. That's in a nutshell about the 5 business proposals. And another challenge we are currently working on is how to realizing this. And one big gap we have spotted is that there is no legal entity at the moment which is on European level acting in a way that it enables specifically innovation and, I would say, these higher TRL commercial activities in that field of digital heritage. And that is for us a starting point, while we're currently scouting and preparing in the direction of a European cooperative society. And the cooperative society is a format which is able to comprise and to host many stakeholders without any need to leave the specific profile of the stakeholder, but with a specific focus, other as an association, as TMO is, for instance, with a specific focus in supporting and leveraging commercial activities. And therefore, it's also something which is not as an association, I would say, a specific entity to be found only, but it's in that case working on a base that shareholders are purchasing specific shares here. So at the moment, also the dedication of this is to further driving the development of those business cases, but also to enable those value chains to connecting services by members, but also supporting the transfer of research into business innovation. We are currently preparing this DHI, Digital Heritage Innovation SCE, with regards at the one hand to collecting the founding capital, but also to preparing the documents, legal documents, for instance, and also the necessary constitution, for instance, to become a legal entity in early 2022. And that brings me to my last slide I've prepared today, and this is about the next steps. So we have at the one hand in this partnership, this initial set of business cases. We are now going in the direction of forming a business or a legal entity for comprising the members from the partnership. And now it's a question how to bring those business cases into reality. And this is something where we are heavily looking and striving for project applications, and currently already started with numerous project applications to bring those into actions. For this first idea, this marketplace, we launched a Creative Europe Innovation Labs application in October this year. And the next activity in line will be that the EU I3 scheme, which is hopefully published this week, will be used to support this funding accelerator into bringing it into action. And for next year, we are planning to go into the directions of Erasmus+, but also MSCA actions with regards to this European Academy idea. And for this development platform, we have spotted a activity which is, or a call which is going in the direction of a European innovation ecosystem, and specifically the focus on a collaborative platform. And that brings me to my last slide here, how and why to join. So please do not hesitate to contact us via email, for instance, or via phone, or as you wish. And the idea is that, of course, all of those activities and all of those applications to realize these business cases are closely connect to demo cases. So at the one hand, to providing opportunity, a frame for enabling demo cases, your demo case ideas, or vice versa, taking extant demo cases and proposals into concern in order to shaping those kind of activities in a way that they are, I would say, targeted to the needs which are, I would say, there in the community. So let me stop at this slide. Many thanks for your attention, and looking forward to come into discussions and have your questions. Thank you.
Dear Sander, thank you very much for all this promising news. I'm now actually looking forward to receiving any questions that might be related to the S3 pilot and what is happening from next year onwards. I'm checking the chat, but I actually don't see anything.
So maybe if you wouldn't mind, I could take this question, what will happen from next year onwards? Because as you maybe remind, in the beginning I mentioned we have at the moment a mandate for a 1-year period. So we will end in 2021. And of course, this kind of S3 partnerships are planned to sustain also by the European Commission. And that means even if our initial phase in this year stops, what we are currently doing is we are preparing, of course, also the necessary documents and to be sent to the Commission in order to have I would say, a sustained state, and therefore being able with this kind of activity, with this kind of partnership, also to become, I would say, a sustained entity for the next years. So that is something we are currently working on.
Thank you, Sander. That's great to hear. I'm still checking if there are any remarks or questions, because if not, then today's session will end. We don't have any sessions left for today. And tomorrow morning, the program starts at 9 a.m. in the morning. And who is nodding is our colleague Ilaria, who may want to say something about, maybe very shortly, about the session tomorrow morning.
Yes, gladly. Thank you. Yes, so tomorrow morning we start indeed at 9 with a session that is titled Technology and the Time Machine Community. So if, as you can very well imagine, we will focus on infrastructure development that has been happening over this past year, as well as in general on the growth of local time machines. Of course, our president has already highlighted this aspect, that LTM projects in particular have grown notably this year. So this is a great success for Time Machine. And we will talk a bit about that. And the second pillar, of course, is the community involvement. So in that sense, we will talk about the different opportunities that exist for members and projects to become even more involved in these developments. And we will do it already during the session with a survey. And as you might know, we've also launched a sort of call for session proposals. So the sessions that we will have tomorrow during this block of the conference have actually been proposed and organized by some of the projects on our platform. So we're very much looking forward to hearing from them and their experiences. Looking forward to seeing you all, I hope.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you very much for this information. So thank you, everyone, Anca, Juan, Sander, Ilaria, for the great interventions and talks, and for our audience, for their patience and for their interesting questions. I think we can end this session here today, and we're hoping to meet you again tomorrow morning at 9. Goodbye.
Bye, thank you, Oğuz, and bye, everyone.
Thank you, goodbye.